Well, we got the flatbed in the shop today. I've been doing a little bit of maintenance behind the scene on this thing. I put some new spark plugs in it last week and a few other things, but I started it up Monday morning and it was knocking. So Tuesday, I drove to Kentucky and I picked up another 5.9 Magnum from Daylan. Now it's Wednesday and this engine's coming out. So just happened to blow up at the right time where the shop has room to get it done and I have time to do it. So we're getting going on it. This engine's about out of here. We're getting ready to break for lunch, but got to take the intake out of it. Once the intake's out, it's just a couple bell housing bolts and this thing's out. It's already unwired. Torque converter bolts are out of it. It's pretty much ready to snatch, and then we'll have the next one ready to sit down in there. Nothing crazy. I actually bought that other engine a couple weeks ago with the intention of sending it to the machine shop, getting it torn down, and building a 408 for this truck. I've always wanted to do a stroker small block Dodge, but this engine decided that that wasn't going to happen. So we're going to throw that one in there pretty much as is right now, just so I have this truck back up and functional. And then I might end up still building the stroker out of this one. I don't know. I only want to do so many engine swaps on my junk, so that engine might be a while before it goes back in the truck. I was doing it preemptively because I knew that this engine needed to come out soon. I've owned this truck for 3 years now, I think.
Sounds right.
And it's had a horrible oil consumption problem since I got it. It's got bad valve seals for sure. It's been ran low on oil. The previous owner ran it very low on oil. When I drove it home, I hit the brakes the first time and the oil light came on, so we had to throw some in there. It leaks. It's a tired old small block, so we'll get the newer, fresher small block. That one's out of a 2000.
Yep.
Less miles, cleaner. I mean, the outside of that engine's actually really clean. So we'll get that thrown in here, and I'll get you guys some more video as we go. It's about ready to come out of there. All that's left are 2 bell housing bolts and the motor mount bolts in it, and then I gotta get these couple for the transcooler line off the front. That's about ready to pull. Daylan's down there draining the oil out of it. We'll have this thing out of here in a few minutes. Well, it's about halfway out. We had to stop because I had some stuff zip tied. But looks like it's moving halfway free now, so. Both of the 5.9s are out. Decided that that one is going to go back in without the headers on, and then we'll just install the headers in chassis because we did run into some clearance issues leaving them on there. But before we put it back in there, I've got a new converter to put in, so I got to crawl in there real quick, get the old converter out, get that swapped over, and I think we're ready to stab the next one in. Well, after some cussing and some fighting and Daylan almost getting taken out by a pry bar, the engine's in there. He's getting the bell housing bolts put in right now. Oh, my bad. You'll have that sometimes. He's getting 2 bell housing bolts tightened. Once those are set, it's on the dowels already. Converter's all the way seated. The new converter is in there. We were joking. We were making sure there was a converter in it because it went on way too easy. Hey, I'd like to point out, this does have the updated balancer on it. I'm still using mine because it's newer. That does have the good one. Alright, so I got the beer keg dropped back on here. Just got some bolts started in it. Daylan is still down there. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Just got last bolt started in the starter.
So, bell housing bolts are in, converter bolts are in. You're about done down there, aren't you?
Just about.
Until we get headers back on this thing?
Yeah, but still gotta tighten the motor mount bolt on this side. And I'm gonna put that brace back in.
Yeah, neither of the motor mount bolts are tight. They're just sitting in place, but I just sat the intake back on, so I'm gonna get this thing tightened up real quick. And then probably get everything rewired, replumbed, and everything on the top side of the motor. I'm leaving the air plumb off for right now because I gotta put plug wires on it, but I don't have the plugs out of the other engine yet. And from experience, it's gonna be easier to take the headers off and get the plugs out after the headers are off of it. But It's moving along pretty good. Fought us a little bit going back in, but once we got the flex plate to go into the bell housing, it's been fairly smooth sailing since. I don't know what time it is. It got dark out.
It's around 5-ish.
Oh, that's not too bad. Well, I don't doubt that we could have this thing running tonight. I have a feeling that Cerveza time is going to show up before this thing runs. It'll probably be tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Our motivation went downhill a lot after the new one was set in.
I want to get this last starter bolt tightened because when it's just done with the ugly shit down here. So
You've been fighting that starter for a while.
actually, it went together pretty easy. It went together a lot easier than it came apart, which is weird. Get that right off.
Well, it's well past beer 30, so I think we're going to call it here for the night. It's about done. New engine's in, trans is bolted up and finished. The only thing that's really left to do underneath is to hook the headers up when I put the headers back on, but the headers are still sitting right here on the old motor. But we will mess with that more tomorrow because I've ran out of carrying today. I'm tired. It's been a long day. But it's close. It's real close. I mean, out, back in, and almost back together one day, I'm pretty happy with. I was planning on this being a 2-day job, but was kind of hoping for one. Yeah. But I'm not mad if it takes 2. I'm just glad that we got this new one in there. Getting really close here. Headers are on. This side, the downpipe is completely tight. The other side, it's started. He's getting ready to crawl into there and finish that. Other than putting the AC compressor on, I think everything's back on the engine. I got to put plug wires on it still. But I'm about ready to put the cooling pack back in it, put fluids in it, and this thing should be running soon. I just about tripped over a torque converter. I'm pretty excited though. I can't wait to hear this thing make some noise. I'm trying to think. I don't think we have anything that's left that's really hard. The headers sucked to put back on. What'd you think? Headers, 1 out of 10. What would you rate them?
-2.
Yeah. And you weren't there the first time I put them on when I had to modify the flanges. So there's these tubes that come up around the spark plugs on Magnums. And the headers wanted to hit them when I first got them. So I actually had to clearance every one of those on both sides to get those to fit. But we got it. Ooh, I just remembered. My cylinder head crowns are only finger tight on the cab. I should probably tighten those. Are you guys interested in seeing a teardown of this 300,000 mile 5.9? If you are, I might set up a camera when I do it. If I do end up keeping this to do the build, the only part of this that's staying is the block. Everything else is going to get trashed. So I'm probably going to tear it down because the block isn't going to take up too much room. I can bag it and store it pretty easily. But the heads are going. Edelbrock makes a set of aluminum heads that are drilled for both LA and Magnum intakes. The entire rotating assembly will be replaced when I make it a 408. So that all comes in a kit. That cam is going to be gone. This timing cover is junk. I mean, I guess I could keep the valve covers, but why would I at that point? The only part I don't know if I'm going to be able to do on the 408 if I end up putting it together, which I still am leaning to doing it, but it probably won't go in the truck anytime soon because I don't want to swap that engine again, at least not for a while, is the intake manifold. Hughes made an intake for these things. That's awesome. And everything works with the factory fuel injection. It uses the fuel rails, the throttle body, all that. But they're discontinued and pretty much unobtainium to find one. Unless one of you guys has one, because if so, shut up and take my money. I want one. Otherwise, there are modifications you can do to the frickin' beer keg intake that come on these things. Mine's a 97, so 94 to 97 have that frickin' shelf right through the center of it, which if I had more time, I probably would have cut it out of that intake before I put it in there, but it's a lot of work.
I've got a 2000 intake at the house that may not have that shelf.
The 2000 intake doesn't now, you tell me that.
Yeah.
So I guess worst...
That's a 2000 motor come out of 2000.
Yeah.
So I've still got an intake off the motor.
Well, worst case, if you have that 2000 intake, that saves me effort. Because what you can do is you can actually bend up a piece of sheet aluminum and weld it at the base of the runners to take the center chamber down, and then it kicks it up and over so you don't have all that dead space on either side of the intake. And that does improve flow quite a bit in these intakes, but that's the only thing that's going to suck. I mean, you have a 500 horse capable small block with an intake that's going to throttle it right down. Because I could go to a different intake, like a single plane or something like that, and then go like a Phytech fuel injection kit or something like that. The only problem is I'm not running factory PCM then, so it's going to take more work to get my gauges and stuff to work. And as of last year, HP Tuners supports 96 and up Dodges. So this truck is supported by HP Tuners. So when I build the new engine, I can tune it and run it on stock PCM, which is pretty tempting to me. I mean, I run HP Tuners on my 2004. And I love the setup on that truck because everything plays nice. I don't have to worry about anything working. All my gauges work. No lights are on or anything funny. I kind of like to do that to this because the only light this thing has is an airbag light because this thing's been totaled a few times. But you'll have that. Anyway, keep an eye out. I'll be posting here in a little bit. Once we get this thing started up, I'll post a startup video for you guys. Here we go. You want to check real quick, make sure we got no fuel leaks? Can you check real quick, make sure we have no fuel leaks? There's a chance it's not going to start. The distributor wasn't exactly how the plug wire routing said it would be. Okay, watch yourself. We're charging. We have really good oil pressure. No check engine light. Only thing I got is the airbag light. I don't want to rev it right now. This is going to be a really first short startup just to prime everything because I need to go button up some wires and stuff under the hood, but I guess we'll give you a quick little rev. All right, it runs. So now that I know that everything works, I can come in here and clean up some of the wiring, like the plug wires and stuff. I got to hook up like my washer bottle and stuff back so it'll work. I just discovered my ground is broke. I should probably clean that positive too, but my ground cracked, so I got to go get a new terminal. I got one of those sitting in my toolbox. But it's pretty much there. The next startup will be longer once I know that everything's tucked away from the headers, nothing's going to touch, rub, melt. We still got to get it up to temperature, bleed the cooling system. I can put the air intake back on now. Once I get everything done, I didn't want to put that back on until I knew that everything was good with the distributor, because you can't really reach the distributor when the plenum's on this truck. But I'm pretty happy. I do need to check automatic transmission fluid too before we go anywhere, since we put a converter in it. But oh, I'm happy. It's been a long day and a half right now. So we'll do a few more things, get this thing tidied up and ready, and probably go take it and do a run at the hill here in a little bit after it's had a little time to break in. This engine hasn't ran in years, so I don't want to go straight to beating on it. We'll get the shop cleaned up and stuff, let it run idle, bleed the cooling system, all that fun stuff first. All right, we're almost up to operating temperature for the first time. The lifters finally quieted themselves down. I mean, I can hear the injectors firing over the mechanical noise the engine makes, so I'm happy. This thing's running smooth. And as soon as we get up to full temperature here, get the cooling system finished bleeding, I think we'll throw the front bumper on it, put it back on the ground, and go from there. I don't think I'm going to do much with it today. I'm kind of tired and ready for a break for a little bit, but I got to change oil on it again. I've got all the stuff to do it, but I don't know how long I'm gonna leave this oil in here. I'm gonna run it for a little while and use it to kind of clean out the engine. I've got cleaner in it because this engine has sat for a little bit. Surprisingly though, nowhere near as sludgy as my old one, which I don't understand because that thing has consistently gotten oil changes 2,000 to 3,000 miles for 3 years and adding a lot of fresh oil to make up for how much it burns, and it was still sludgy. So anyway, gonna let this thing get up to temp, be happy, then we'll shut it down, give everything a once over again, put the front bumper back on, and pull it out of the shop. All right, first drive. Well, drove it a little bit yesterday. Discovered a couple small issues that we need to address, but nothing crazy. I'm gonna retorque all these header bolts or make sure they're all tight again, which, if I remember right, most of those actually need a wrench, so let's go grab a wrench to do that. Had a bit of an idle issue, so I pulled the idle air control out and cleaned it. It would idle fine, but like recovering from RPM, as soon as it came down, it would have a bit of a sluggish response out of that. So I did have this intake all rolled around when I was replacing the gasket that goes on the plate on the bottom. So I don't know if some oil or something got up in there maybe, because there was oil inside the intake, and gummed it up a little bit. So I went ahead and cleaned that all out. And then the oil pressure sending unit that was in it. The sending unit was brand new, never used on this engine, but it sat for years without having anything in it. Going down the road at constant RPM, my oil pressure started fluctuating. This would drop out. It would show no oil pressure. It would come back up and do all kinds of weird stuff. Now, I don't know for a fact that it's this. It's a pretty good guess, though. I did not have any issues with the oil pressure gauge or wiring on the old truck. I didn't use my old sensor because this one was new. It had been sitting for a while. But for how cheap these are, I just went ahead and hedged my bets. We'll throw one in there and see what it does. I don't think we have a mechanical oil pressure issue, which if it still acts up, I'll get my mechanical gauge and throw it on there. But I don't think I've got a wiring issue in the truck either. I mean, we had the wiring harness moved off to the side, but it's not like we had any crazy angles or anything, and that is a new issue. So go grab my wrench real quick. We'll tighten up all these bolts on the headers, make sure they're all good, and then drive it again, run it a little more, see how it is. But I'm pretty happy with it so far. It runs great down the road. Like I said, the big problem is just when you come to let off the throttle occasionally, it tries to stall. Like, it's slow reaction on that IAC. But we'll see. All right, so a couple little fixes on here. Let's see what we can do. So before, like right about now, that oil pressure gauge would have just been twitching all over the place. It would have come down and held at like 20 for a second. It dropped to 0. It'd sit at 0 for a second. It popped back up to 40, and it would just be twitching all over the place like a crackhead on Christmas. So I think we got that thing fixed. Now, the other thing it was doing is hold it at RPM like this for a minute, then let off. It idles. Give it a quick rev. Idles. I think we might have it fixed. All right, well, I think everything's taken care of. So I need to go to the grocery store, take it for a test drive, and see how it does. already noticed, just backing away from the shop, it seems more responsive right off idle, and at idle it seems to move better. I was having to give it throttle before to really get it moving. I don't think we were getting very good airflow at idle. That idle air control valve was nasty. Well, I can hear a bit of an exhaust leak, but we'll have to check the downpipe for those. Headers are tight, but to do the downpipes you got to be underneath the truck, and I was not underneath of the truck this morning, but I will be in the next couple days here. I'm gonna try to put about 150 miles on this before I change the oil, just because of how sludgy that was. I've got some decent oil in there, and I've got a little bit of cleaner in there, so we'll get it changed up relatively soon here. And when I do that, I'll check those downpipes. They're not any gaskets or anything that go on these. They're just a, you know, they fit and seal up when they're tight, hopefully. But it sounds like this driver's side one's a little bit loose. Not the end of the world though. But it's got power, it's driving nice. I don't see anything alarming on my gauges. The oil pressure's doing what it's supposed to for a change, which is nice. Call that a success. Well, we're almost back. Everything's looking great on the gauges. Other than fixing that little bit of a leak on the downpipe and changing the oil, I think we're pretty much good on this one. Sorry I didn't get more recorded for you guys, but I only had help for 2 days, and I really do appreciate Daylan coming down to Tennessee and giving me a hand with this. But you know, this is my work truck, so if I gotta go do service calls, this is how I do it. So with this thing down, I'm not really making money, or I can't go make money like I normally do. So unfortunately, getting this fixed took priority over recording getting this fixed. Man, that exhaust leak is mildly annoying though. We will get that fixed. Like I said, it's just got to be the collector. I didn't retorque those yet because it was muddy outside. I don't want to lay in mud to do it, but I've only got the airbag light on the dash, which that's been on since I've owned this truck, but I'm not concerned. This thing's been totaled a few times, so I'm honestly not shocked that the airbag light is on. I thought about fixing it, but gives the truck character. Well, now that this is done, my project list is shortened up, and I actually have a little bit of time off coming up, so I think most of you are going to enjoy this. Or when I say most of you, I mean the one guy who just keeps creating accounts over and over to spam the same question. I actually might get some work done on my bus for a change. And maybe fix the driveway. That last storm really tore it up.